Deep in the heart of ancient Mexico, where the sun burned hot and the land was ruled by gods of war and rain, stood the great pyramids of the Aztecs. These towering stone temples were not just places of worship, they were the very center of life and death. And at their summits, hidden in the smoke of burning incense, were the blood altars. These altars were sacred, feared, and powerful. They were where the Aztecs spoke to their gods, where blood was spilled, and where the fate of their world was decided. The Aztecs believed their gods needed blood to keep the sun moving, to bring rain, and to protect their empire. Without blood, the world would end. And so, atop their pyramids, priests performed rituals that would shock us today. They would take prisoners of war, criminals, and even volunteers, and offer their hearts to the gods. The victim would be laid upon the blood altar, their chest cut open, and their still-beating heart ripped out and raised to the sky. Blood would pour down the steps of the pyramid, a river of red flowing into the earth, feeding the gods below. But why did they do this? The Aztecs told a story, a myth of creation and sacrifice. Long ago, the gods themselves had to bleed to create the world. The sun would not move unless it was powered by blood. The earth would not grow crops unless it drank the blood of the fallen. The Aztecs saw themselves as the children of the gods, bound by duty to keep the world alive through sacrifice. If they failed, darkness would swallow the sun, the rains would stop, and the people would starve. The most important of these blood altars stood in the great city of Tenochtitlan, at the top of the Templo. This was the temple of Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun. Every year during the festival of Huitzilopochtli, hundreds, maybe even thousands, of captives were led up the pyramid steps. Drums pounded, priests chanted, and the crowd roared as each victim met their fate. The air was thick with the smell of blood and burning copal incense. The Aztecs believed that these sacrifices pleased Huitzilopochtli and gave him the strength to defeat the forces of darkness each night. But not all sacrifices were violent. Some were quiet, personal acts. People would pierce their tongues, their ears, or even their genitals with thorns, letting their own blood drip onto paper or bark. These offerings were burned, the smoke carrying prayers to the gods. Even the emperor would bleed for the gods, proving his devotion and his right to rule. The blood altars were not just places of death, they were gates between worlds. The Aztecs believed in layers of existence, the world of the living, the world of the dead, and the realms of the gods. Blood was the key that opened these gates. When a person died on the altar, their soul did not simply vanish. It traveled to the afterlife, guided by the gods. Some went to the paradise of Tlaloc, the rain god, where endless summer awaited. Others joined the sun god in his battle across the sky. And some became hummingbirds, flitting between flowers in a land of eternal joy. But the blood altars also had a darker side. The Aztecs feared that without sacrifice, the gods would turn against them. Stories were told of times when the sacrifices stopped, when drought came, when crops failed, when enemies attacked. The people believed these disasters were punishments from the gods, warnings to spill more blood. And so the rituals continued year after year, war after war, feeding an endless hunger. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they were horrified by what they saw. To them, the blood altars were proof that the Aztecs were savages, worshipping demons. They tore down the pyramids, burned the temples, and tried to erase the old ways. But even in ruins, the altars whispered their secrets. Today, archaeologists dig through the stones, uncovering knives of obsidian, bowls for holding hearts, and the bones of the sacrificed. The blood altars may be silent now, but their story is not forgotten. The myths of the Aztecs live on, in the carvings on ancient walls, in the songs of their descendants, and in the shadows of the pyramids that still stand. The blood altars were more than just stone. They were the meeting place of gods and men, the balance between life and death, the price of keeping the world alive. And though their rituals have ended, their echoes remain, carved not just in stone, but in the memory of time itself.